reaction that business owners have when they truly understand what their culture is versus what they think it is. They're always shocked. Apple and Google, they also have it right. Apple has an unbelievable culture of fanatic fans all over the planet. Hi, this is Barry Saltzman. I am your host of Culture Shock. Today I'm very excited to have Mike Bryant, CEO of NSource. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Barry.
Today we're going to talk about culture in the legal industry. Michael's going to talk a little bit about his business and the services he provides to law firms, and then we're going to really dig in and understand how culture is impactful on the clients that you serve. So Mike, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little about your business and the services that you provide.
Great. NSource is really a disruptive new company in an old sector. Law firms more and more are really beginning to make decisions around what is core, really strategic for their firm, and what is tactical. There's a lot of pressure on their industry right now from a rate standpoint and from a capacity perspective. So they're really enlisting experts to help them rationalize their back office and what we call their mid office as well.
Great. So when we spoke a few weeks ago, you mentioned the impact of culture, and I found it fascinating that you have the culture of the client, which is a legacy culture, and then you bring in a new suite of services with a new culture. So how does that work?
It is an interesting dynamic, and I'd say, first of all, law firms are getting much more sophisticated with the use of outsourcing as just really another management tool that's available to them. Having said that, it really requires a lot of planning, and we spend a lot of time working with our clients to understand not only what their financial and operational objectives are, but what is their culture like? You know, what sort of experience have they had working with business partners in the past, and what impact is it going to have with the employees that aren't coming to NSource, for instance, if there is a transition. So that's where we spend a lot of our time, and we think that's what differentiates us in the market, is getting that match right and creating solutions that are a little less traditional. We are capable of providing services on-site in our client operation or off-site in one of our production centers that we've built out both in North America and abroad.
So with these two dynamics, legacy, client culture, and your team, does a new culture get formed, or do two cultures learn to peacefully coexist?
I think it's more the latter. It's important that we truly understand our host culture, our client culture, and we recruit talent and talk a lot about that dynamic with the talent that we associate with a client relationship. And the fact that they're going to, the most successful relationships are the ones where we seamlessly integrate into a culture that exists already at the client operation, but also they'll be a part of the NSource culture, which is, you know, an exciting, fast-growing, innovative culture. So we like to consider it the best of both worlds for our employee base.
Right. So when you recruit, what do you look for in the people that you're bringing onto these client engagements?
It's really less about the exact skill match around a tactical operation, whether it be accounting, IT, HR, and more about attitude, more about a willingness to be very customer service oriented. We teach skills. You know, we have a lot of success in bringing in the right talent with the right orientation around the client, and put them through a curriculum to beef up their skills in a particular area. They're certainly coming in with foundational skills, but even if they show the aptitude and not the exact skill and experience match, we can teach them that. We can't teach them the service orientation and really that cultural impact that's important.
So with some of your engagements, do you have any specific tools or metrics in place to say, we started a project 18 months ago, here's where we are at this point in time in the future? Do you have any way of measuring the impact of culture?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this in the past, Barry, around transparency. I think it's really important to understand current state and we spend a lot of time up front with the client looking at the data. The culture, of course, is a big part of that, but let's look at the data in terms of what the baseline performance is in any particular service. And I think what clients are looking for from us is improvements around those key metrics that we're being held accountable for. But beyond that, I think we're held to a higher standard. I think that's table stakes for a successful outsourcing relationship. Is they're looking for operational improvement because this is our business. I think more than that, they're really looking for continuous improvement and new ideas, not only in the particular area that we're working, but adjacent service areas.
Do you take a role in, typically there's accountability, trust, communications are big issues with culture. What role do you take, what does your organization take when you start a project with a client in terms of, just say communications?
I think it's really what differentiates us from our competition. We sort of grew up in this market and worked in bigger environments, and frankly, in large environments, you walk in and there, just by sheer economies of scale, you have to adhere to certain policies and procedures. And we found that customizing a solution for our clients is important, and really understanding what their expectations are from a communication standpoint. Clients want weekly status reports, for instance. They want monthly deep dive packages. And we, in many cases, insist on quarterly meetings that are a bit more strategic, where we really renew the relationship around what got us here, what was the problem that we were solving for initially, what's transpired since then, and where are you going as a firm, so we can kind of stay connected with their strategy and adapt. And I think that's what, in many outsourcing relationships, that gets lost, is really reminding the client continuously why they hired you, and really working with them around their growth and really what their challenges are, and sharing with them what you're investing in and what you're seeing in the market. I think that's what really creates a positive communication framework.
So adaptability, the first thing that comes to mind is change management, right? So you're coming in, you're taking over the operations of a piece of the law firm, you're bringing in your own team, your own process, probably your own systems as well. How do you manage change management? Because I'm assuming lawyers might be set in their ways. Now they need to do things different.
That's really an important point, and I do think that particularly attorneys and many of the clients that we work with are, whether it's in the legal market or not, they're generally in the professional services sector. They really appreciate early and often the transparency around what's happening. And it's not just that we're bringing in NSource to improve a particular operation. They want to know why. What was the impetus for the decision? What value are they going to bring? And we spend a lot of time on that, really kind of building the communication framework for our decision makers to kind of communicate out to the attorneys, to the staff that are affected, to the staff that are not affected. And I think change really starts with understanding the current state, everyone being on the same page in terms of what the desired state is, and then actively working on the change management and the project specifics around how we implement.
So is there a best practice that you could share with fellow managing partners of other law firms? If there was one best practice that you said, this is a home run 90% of the time, what would it be?
I do think that our advice when it comes to change management and communication is, when you're debating how to or when to communicate this change, and we don't trivialize the change when you're affecting. Sometimes these are people's lives that are being affected that might have worked for the firm for 10 years, 20 years. So our advice always is manage the communication early and manage it in a very direct, transparent way with the employees that are affected, and with the partners that are affected, the associates that are affected, the entire organization. They don't want to hear about things, after decisions are made, and when you're close to implementation. Really helps to understand the business case around using outsourcing as a management tool.
Yeah, so in the last 5 years, I've been doing outsourcing for 20 years, more from an IT perspective. No one ever talked about culture back in the day. It seems like culture keeps coming up. And do you feel the same thing in your market?
I do. I think that regardless of which organization we work with, and nonprofit, corporate, and law firms, I do think that everyone understands that you're dealing with people's lives here. When you make a change operationally, and I think that modern companies particularly are leading with human capital, whereas I think back when I started in this business in the '80s, sometimes it was relegated to a spreadsheet, and it was an afterthought. How people were affected by some of these transitions. I think it's on the forefront now, and that's been a positive change for the industry.
Great. So so final question: if you were to sum up in a word, if you can, what would be the culture of the firm when you're fully engaged? What would be the word that best describes it?
I think really integrated, seamless, those are the words we strive for. A measure of success for us is when we're invited to the holiday party. When we're out with our clients, shoulder to shoulder, solving problems together, celebrating successes together. That's the measure of success that we look for.
Great. Well, thank you for coming in and sharing some of your wisdom, and a lot of great information here. And if you're working with law firms and you're looking for back office operations, think about culture and think about getting invited to the holiday party. That's a sign of success. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Barry.